standing on the escarpment on the top of Tokra Pass, looking across the Benghazi plains towards the town of Benghazi in the distance. The view is parametric in the sense it looks barren to say the least. Rocks, camel scrub, dust and dirt and sand is all that it consists of, but that's the Western Desert. Looking down the pass, it can be frightening. Driving the vehicle down there is even worse, and by the time you reach the bottom, the brakes are hot and the reverse gears are whining a bit. As you make your way down, it's obvious that things haven't worked out in some instances, and wrecks are lay about here and there at various stages of the pass. A couple of tanks on one side, two 3-ton Chevy 6 trucks on the other, and this is how it unfolds. Eventually you reach the bottom after about 27 reverses and forward motions on some of the bad corners, but it is negotiable and it has been. It's part and parcel of the area, and it has to be seen to be appreciated. It's part of the Italian colonialisation plans that went on when Mussolini started to settle this part of the world, and in order that they should leave something of their history, this is what they did. They built the Marble Arch. Now when you see the Marble Arch, you're looking at a concrete construction that is a formidable piece of engineering. It was built by Italian engineers, and if you look at it and try to study it, it looks like an inverted V, a colossal building out of reinforced concrete. And at the top of it, on either side, is a prostrate figure of one of the local inhabitants of that time, which would have been a member of the Senussi tribe. And it depicts a black man either side, looking one towards Benghazi, one towards Nufila, and they are posing as though they're holding their hands up to their face. Now there is a story behind this, and the story goes that many years ago there was a land dispute between two different tribes, and in order to settle the dispute, they decided to have a competition. Now that competition was going to take the place of settling the border difference, and how they did it was that a champion of each tribe would set off from a certain point, and wherever these two met, that would be considered to be the border between the two tribes. And so on the day of this competition, that's exactly what happened. They set off with a view to meeting each other, and eventually they did. But the trouble was that when they met, neither one was happy about the event in terms of where they met. And so an upset took place immediately. And it goes on that one buried the other alive. That's why they seem to be holding their hands up to their faces. But one was buried alive and the other claimed the distinction of having championed his race, and that was where it was. I've yet to meet anybody that would honestly put it down as the truth, but nevertheless, this was the fallacy behind the monument, and the monument still stands that today. Now, as you go through the Marble Arch and carry on towards Nufila, the road is still a hard road, and it still carries traffic towards Tripoli itself. This is now entered Tripolitania, and we're going across the old Alagila salt flats. And if you leave the hard road, you are onto terrain that is pretty hard to cope with. You can't drive straight and say, well, that's it, because you'd be running over big rocks and God knows what, and before you knew where you were, you would be in trouble with your vehicle. As I say, it is a pretty rough country to travel over, but nevertheless you can do. As you travel on towards New Philia, you're still progressing along the coast road and heading towards Tripoli, and there's still evidence strewn each side of the road of the conflict that took place all those years ago. And I suppose as you look out either side of the road, you begin to wonder how these lads survived those many years ago under all the privations that existed at that time, when water was short, food was short, life expectancy was short, and some of the trials and tribulations that the lads went through. So I still wonder how we survived that period of time. But nevertheless, survived we did, and we eventually made Tripoli. On the way to Tripoli, you often looked out and found that salt marshes, waddies, rocks, whatever it was that stood in your way, but you got round it, you got through it, you got over it. And that was something else that you said at the end of the day, thank Christ we've seen the last of it. Now Tripoli is a city that's quite nice, considering that it's a Middle Eastern city that suffered the ravages of time over a period of time. It housed the Italian colonial people for so many years, and I suppose it's seen a lot of differences of the different nationalities of people that have attacked it over a period of many years. It has a distinct Arab flavour about it, and when you start looking at it, you can see that its historical background is quite unique. I think it's been attacked by Christ knows everybody in the world over a period of time, and it shows. But nevertheless, it still is a city of historic value, and it does show the signs of life that it's been over many years. And it does have some love about it, and it is looked on with a fair amount of awe. We've had a few days here, and we've had a good look round and seen what goes on, but unfortunately we're on the move again north, this time towards Tripolitania itself, into Tunisia, and we're heading for a place called Enfidaville, which will take us on up the other side of Gafsa and Gabis into Tunisia itself. Now you'll see a bit of a change come about because Tunis here is a little bit greener. It has something of a different flavour, but nevertheless, as we proceed through, you'll see that there is a difference. And as you notice, the terrain there becomes just a little bit narrower and a little bit harder, and you can understand how the Germans got themselves bottled up towards Cap Bon. They had begun to get shrunk into a vacuum, and being on their own, the Italians had virtually capitulated by this time, and they were left on their own more or less. So with the First Army pushing from the north and the 8th Army pushing from the south, they were getting squeezed into a tight corner and being pushed with or towards Cap Bon. Enfidaville would have been virtually the last place that I would have been involved with, as at this time of the proceedings, the war had very nearly spent its course in Africa, and there was talk about some of the units being withdrawn, and at that stage in the game there was talk of regrouping and retraining for things that were obviously in the future. all of a sudden the order came through that my unit was going to be withdrawn. All sorts of rumours were circulating at that time, and one of the very popular rumours were that we were going to go back to Egypt for a regroup. And true to that, very soon after that, the unit was withdrawn in total, and some of its assets were already dispatched back towards Egypt. The upshot of it was that one day we were all grouped together and told that we were going to return to a demob centre in Egypt itself. And so the time came when some of the vehicles that we had were taken from us into a VOR, and what vehicles were left, we were all stacked on them, ready to go. We were going to share the driving over a period of time, and that morning we set off in a small convoy back to a place called Tahag in Egypt. Eventually, after a few days, we arrived back there into a tented establishment, and we were going to get a leave, and we were going to get redressed, and all the things that went with it. Eventually, we did get a leave. We all got 4 days leave in Cairo, and we all got our jabs that were outstanding, and our inspections and things like that. And then we were told that we were going to go to Syria and to reform a company and get ourselves trained up for whatever was going to happen. And so we all got up this morning, and we then proceeded on our way across the Suez Canal and into the Asluj Desert, making our way towards Palestine, where we were going to hit Haifa and then make our way up into the Bekaa Valley to a place called Baalbek, which would be the headquarters for some time to come. And this was the procedure that was going to go on. We were spread over a number of vehicles, and time really was of the essence to us. The journey across the Asluj Desert wasn't a very nice one. It was a better desert than the Western Desert, in as much as there wasn't so much debris about it. It was sand dunes and the like. So travelling was a little bit more comfortable. You weren't dodging bricks and rocks and stuff, and the road wasn't too bad. It was a dry atmosphere, but because of the situation, water was plentiful. We'd taken enough with us, so that wasn't so bad. Our first stop was a place called Asluj, where we had pulled up, and because we'd got our own supplies, it was easy to make the tea and such like. But our first stop was going to be Haifa, where we would find a transit camp and probably good facilities for bunkering up, as it were. This would be our first call somewhere around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I would suggest that at that time we would bunk down there for the night, it being the best place to be. Well, we had stopped and had a brew up and checked petrol oil and stuff, ready for the next part of the journey. And this was now going to be into rising ground that was going up towards the Haifa Plateau. It was still a rough old piece of desert. God knows I wouldn't like to get lost in it. But nevertheless, it was one of those places where it didn't give anything, it didn't ask for anything, but it was rough. And so we were on our second leg of the journey towards Haifa and the transit camp. Well, you could almost smell Haifa in the distance. It was one of those places. If you were unfortunate enough to get down in the lower area, which was the dock area, it was rough. But if you got to Hightown, which was the upper part of Haifa, it wasn't too bad. That was the Jewish settlements, and it was the cultivated part of the town where you stood a bit of a chance of being okay. You could get your throat cut down in the dock area, no trouble at all. The wogs were not very kind, and they were like everybody else. They were out to make an easy buck, and if you got an easy buck in your arse pocket, you were going to lose it. That was about the top and bottom of it. We were fortunate enough to arrive at the camp okay. A bit of a dump, to say the least, but nevertheless it was a typical army transit camp, and you'd got to make the best of it. So in we went. We doctored the vehicles up with petrol, oil and water, and checked things that everything was okay, so that when it came movement time tomorrow morning, we were all right. It was now the cook-house job, and this is where you either got frightened to death or shocked into false security, as it were. Transit camp cookhouses was never advertised. In fact, if you listen to some of the lads that had been there, they were dumps. And when I say dumps, they not only fed you crap, they made it as well. So it was one of them things. Anyway, on reflection, we were faintly surprised because either they'd been told we were coming or they decided to do something different, because it was digestible and it hadn't been cooked too bad, and despite the fact it was water buffalo, or I think that was what it was, besides the fact that it was water buffalo, it was chewable, and there was a marked absence of shy dogs here, so there was no danger of you getting your meat nicked like you did down in Egypt. So it was a matter of, well, we had a meal and that was it. We slept all right, although we put a guard on the vehicles, because it looked to me like there were some nice people here. They flitted about very quietly, and so never wogs are quiet, there's a danger that they're up to something. So we put a couple of spotters out and watched things like that. Anyway, next morning we were up quite early because we wanted to move on, and it was a cookhouse job, and it wasn't too bad. The bacon was a bit burnt, but it was bacon, and we'd got bread, and that was a bonus, having bread. So it was a matter of we got air feed, and we were away smartly. We were heading out of Haifa now, and we were going up border country towards the Lebanon, and we had hoping to move into a place near the settlement, near the convict settlement that was right on the border of the two countries, Israel and, or as it was then, Palestine. Okay. This is a dreary looking place at the best of times. It's sort of on the border between the two countries, and neither one of them had done much about tidying the place up. But nevertheless, I think the convict settlement here says it all. It goes out into the ocean a little bit, and it looks like they've let some of the families come and stay with them, because there's women and kids there, but it doesn't look much of a place. Anyway, we're going to cross the border into the Lebanon, where the transit camp is, and hopefully we'll stay overnight in the transit camp. You're pretty safe in the transit camp at night. There are prowler guards about, and you can sleep under or in your wagon and know that if there's a noise or anything like that, you can be up and about with a pistol cocked to shoot whoever is mooching about, and that's how the thing goes. That's what life is like. Well, the grub isn't bad in here. We've had a nice meal before settling down for the night, and just going through the bits and pieces, planning tomorrow's ops really, because I think tomorrow we're going to go through Beirut and up over the mountains, and then we'll go down into the Bekaa Valley towards Baalbek, which will be our destination for the time being. I've had a look at the route. It looks okay. I don't know about the crossing the hill. It's supposed to be the highest mountain road in the world for navigation purposes, and I don't think we'll have much trouble getting over it. It seems to be okay. Well, we've had a good night's kip, and everybody seems to be alert, and having walked round to where the mess tent is and scrounged a bit of breakfast, we're ready for the off. Oil and water and petrol is all ready and set up, so we don't have a problem. Anyway, like I say, we're going to head out this camp and across Beirut, and hopefully we'll be all right. Well, we're on the move, and we're coming up towards the city of Beirut, and it don't look much good to me. It's typical Arab situation, donkey carts and broken down old motors and that around the place, until you come into the city centre, when it gets a little bit more civilised with nice buildings and things like that, and you can see that there's quite a element of French support here from years gone by, so it brightens up. And we've gone through the town now, and we're heading for the hill, and it looks a bit awesome to look at it from here, but nevertheless we'll get up and over it, and up we start. We're going to run right over the top in one go, because it's a little bit forbidden to be parking on the side of the road. As you climb up towards the top and look down, it's a bit of a sight, because you can see quite a distance. You can see, but in here, see back to Haifa, and the old wagons are warmed up a bit, but everything seems to be okay. We seem to be going okay. We don't readily have a problem, and we've now reached the very top. So we've pulled into a little area on the side of the road, mainly so that we can stop and have a breather, because it's a bit of hard work coming up there with all the twists and turns, but also I think the main thing is so we can have a look and see what's what. It's a bit of a drag down the mountain towards the Bekaa Valley, and it looks a formidable place to go to, and because of the weight we're carrying on these old trucks, it's a bottom gear job in places, and one of the old Chevys is starting to whine a bit, but we're getting down okay. You start to think about if you'd got to do this run every day, you'd start to look for a truck that could do it, because some of these old ones won't stand up to it all that long. Anyway, we're on a couple of rough old bends here, and as we come round, you can see the Bekaa Valley in all its distance, right through to where the old mountains go up to the Cedars. And I dare say that in another half hour we'll be down the bottom of this hill, and we'll maybe stop for a brew up. The lads have indicated that they could do with one, so I think that's what it'll be. Unfortunately for us, we got Paddy Dalzell with the compliment of the blokes here. and he'll be gagging for a drink now. I know he ain't had a bottle of beer now for must be a week, since we left Ismailia and crossed the canal. I knew he was on his last one then, so he'll be frantic now to get a drink. The trouble is now, watching him for the next few days, because if he finds somewhere where the jungle juice crushed, he'll be off his nut, and then we'll all be in trouble, and trouble it'll be. But nevertheless, the lads are pulling in now, so we're going to pull in and have a brew up and see what the score is. Well, we've had a nice cup of tea and a smoke, and we've hit the road again now, and we're going to run into Fort Girard, the other end of the town, where we've been told they'll have some grub ready for us. So it's only a matter now of running straight in there. There's hardly any traffic about, so it don't look like we're going to have a problem. We're coming into Baalbek town itself, and when you look at this place, it's a bit frightening. It's a dump, really. There's one road runs to the left that runs around the town. It's its bypass, and the other runs right through Fort Medellin and into the town itself, which I guess it'll be the town road. And this is the one we're going to take, and we're going to take it for two reasons. A, it gets us into Baalbek quicker, and B, it runs into the fort itself, so it'll be better for us. We've had our first misunderstanding with a member of the local fraternity. There's a wog stood here with a bleeding ox and a cart, and he hasn't got sense enough to get out of the way, and we wouldn't have got a six-wheeler GMC past him. So when we asked him to move, all we got from him was a load of crap about the French and that, not treating them right. So we invited him to move, and he was a bit hesitant. So what we've done, we've shoved the bumper under the back end of the cart, and we've pushed the lot, including the ox, into the side of the road. Poor bugger's fell in the edge, but that ain't our worry. He's gone balmy now, the wog has, but we've threatened to shoot him if he don't shut his trap. And we're now going into the fort itself. And Christ, when you look at this place, you think, where the hell have you got to? We've come to a stop in what would have been the parade ground, and stood there waving his arms is Captain Richards. Our luck runs out today. I never knew he was here, else otherwise I'd have tried to get out and come in. But nevertheless, we're going to be stuck with him. We've got to try and work round it. He's an American officer, a captain. He's all right, I suppose. It's us that can't take his stupid ways. But nevertheless, I suppose we'll get used to it. I mean, us proper army blokes are a bit different from them. And our life and discipline is entirely different. But we'll work something out one way or another. The lads have climbed down from the trucks, and they stood there looking round and asking themselves what sort of life they're going to have here. But from the rumours I've heard, we ain't going to be here all that long. It'll be a case of sort of getting used to it, having a few days rest and seeing what transpires. But it'll be all right. I think everything's going to work out okay. And he said that we can go into the old guard room. So I said, well, who is we? He said, you, Jock, and Corporal Dalzell. I thought, Christ,
That's the bad luck's going the wrong way for a start. I thought we was going to get rid of Paddy, but nevertheless, we'll make the best out of it. Some of the lads are going into another room, the other side of what they've got as a canteen. So it looks like we're all being taken care of. And then he's said, as soon as you're ready, go down and the the cook will sort you out some food. And then after that, we'll get together and decide what's going to happen. But he said, I want you to take note of the fact that you and Jock and Paddy Dalzell won't be here only for 2 or 3 days, and then you're going to move up the road towards Lathick. Don't mind, it gets us about, and we're all right, so we don't have to worry about it.